Hey guys, it's Eric from Mad A Productions, and today we're going to be taking a look at a port of a really cool arcade game on a very underrated handheld system. We'll be taking a look at Xybots on the Atari Lynx. Now, I'm a huge fan of the Xybots arcade game, and I've become a huge fan of the Atari Lynx, and I've also become a huge fan of breaking the seal on brand new games. So let's take a trip back to 1991 and open this thing up. So here's the box for Xybots for the Atari Lynx. Now this is a game that I used to play all the time in the arcade. It was a two-player arcade game, and you're this dude here with this weird gun, which I always thought it was weird that the gun had this circle thing around. It's even more pronounced in the game graphics. Interesting looking gun. But you go through a maze and you shoot robots. Pretty simple stuff. This was, like I said, an 80s Atari arcade game, and then this was ported over to the Lynx. And I could be wrong, but I don't know of any, at least American home consoles, besides the Lynx that this game was ported to. So I was pretty excited to pick this up. Now, for whatever reason, there is a lot of new old stock of Atari Lynx games sitting around. Well, it's not for whatever reason. It's because this thing didn't sell. So you can get a lot of Atari Lynx games pretty cheap. I forget what I paid for this, but it wasn't a lot. And there are tons of, for example, this game, just sealed copies of it laying around. So I'm going to open it so I can play it. And it even has like the retail hang tab thing still on it. Now, I've never opened a factory sealed Atari Lynx game before, so I don't know what's going to be in here, but I don't have a lot of high hopes for anything really cool because at this point in time, Atari was kind of in serious financial trouble and having a lot of issues. So, to be honest with you, I'm surprised the box is even in color. Because at that point, a lot of their like manuals, the labels on the Atari 7800 games were black and white. So this is probably just going to be a box, the game, and maybe a short little instruction pamphlet. There probably won't be any cool posters in here, but I'll be pleasantly surprised if there's any sort of like Atari, catalog or poster or anything in here besides the booklet in the game. I don't know why I needed to peel that off first, but that gave me a good place to start. There's a lot of rattling in there, so it doesn't even sound like they used a lot, and as far as like an insert or anything to kind of hold stuff around like they did with Game Boy games. There in the box is a little, you can see the front of it's kind of concave, but I'll fix that. All right, I did the thing. That's okay. Oh no, there is like an insert in here. Okay, I was totally wrong. There's just a lot of room for it to rattle. So there's the game. Pretty excited to have that. I don't have a lot of Atari Lynx games yet, so I'm pretty excited for this, especially because this is an arcade game that I did really enjoy playing back in the day. And let's see, looks like we've got a... Oh! Well, there's a little bit more in here than I thought. So it looks like there's a Atari Corporation limited 90-day warranty. I wonder if they would still honor this. Probably not. Oh, okay. So this is really cool. It looks like this is cool. This was a cool idea. It's a poster for the game. Wow, this is really cool, actually. I'm gonna have to take a wider shot of this. So here's a shot of the whole poster, and I've got the Atari Lynx game there for scale. It's about the size of a Game Boy game. And this is pretty cool. I mean, this is a cool poster. I love the Xybots artwork, so that's cool. And on the back side, if you flip it over, it's the instruction manual for the game, which this is really cool. I like this idea. Like I said, this is the first sealed Atari Lynx game that I've ever opened, and I'm really new to Atari Lynx collecting, so I don't know if this is the case with a lot of Atari Lynx games, but I hope it is, because I think this is a really cool and novel idea. Making the instruction manual into a poster, I think it makes it a lot more likely that you're going to keep it. And stuff like this is making me look forward to getting even deeper into Atari Lynx collecting. But let's take a look at the game. The Atari Lynx is a difficult system to film. It is a little bit easier than the Sega Game Gear, though the screens have held up better over time than on the Sega Game Gear. The screen on my Atari Lynx does look a lot better in person than it does here in the footage. But as you can see, this is a third-person style shooter, and it is a little bit different from the arcade. The arcade game was kind of split, the screen, where you had one part for each player, and then there was also a status and map screen on the top. The Atari Lynx version is just strictly zoomed in on the player's portion of the screen. The map and the status screen are accessible by hitting the Option 2 button, which we'll see later on in the footage. And the other difference is the arcade game actually had a joystick that was also a knob that spun, so that's how you turned your character around. And when you did that, there was a smooth animation that showed the transition. In the Atari Lynx version, you hold a button down and then push the joystick in the direction you want to spin around, and the screen just kind of instantly flips that way. So it's a little bit awkward at first, but you get used to it. I love that pose you strike. That's the pose you strike if you destroy all of the robots on the level. And here's the exit. In between each level, you stop at a vending machine and you can spend the coins that you picked up throughout the previous level or that you've earned from different bonuses like clearing out the level completely, things like that. So here you can power up your weapon, you can slow down how quickly you lose your energy, and that is something important to note. You do have a gauntlet style energy system here where your energy kind of just depletes on its own over time and you lose even more when you get hit, so that's something you have to keep an eye on. Now that does become more difficult to keep an eye on because the status screen isn't always visible, so you have to kind of flip between your status / map screen and your play screen to see that. But there is a visual indicator that you'll see as well. Your little light on the back of your guy will start blinking yellow when you're starting to run low, and then it'll turn red when you're running critically low. But there you can see we had a map of the level and also our energy level and things like that. Now it's also important to note when you go to the map, you're still in real time. You can still get shot by robots and stuff while you're looking at the map. That doesn't pause the game. Now with the limitations of the Atari Lynx aside, this is a really solid port of the game. The animation's not quite as smooth as the arcade game, but the sprites look great, and it's important to note that the Atari Lynx is a 16-bit handheld system, whereas the Sega Game Gear and Nintendo Game Boy were only 8-bit systems, so this technically was a superior system, and it was able to pull off great ports of games like Xybots and Xenophobe, and I'm really happy to have this game in my collection. Now, if you're collecting for the Atari Lynx, I would definitely recommend tracking down a copy of Xybots. It's tons of fun. Now, lastly, I wanted to show some footage that I captured via an emulator just so you could get a better idea of what the graphics really look like. This is captured on a Atari Lynx emulator on my hacked Wii that I have, and then I'm capturing it from that. So you can get a better idea of what the colors look like and really how great the graphics are for a handheld system from 1991. Again, like I mentioned earlier, this is a 16-bit system, so it really does arcade ports like this fantastically. I really do think this is a fantastic port of the Xybots arcade game. I'm a huge fan of that arcade game and have tons of experience playing it, and even with the Atari Lynx's limitations, this definitely does provide the Xybots experience. The good news is also, like a lot of other Atari Lynx games, this one is pretty cheap, so I think now is the time to start collecting for the Atari Lynx. I myself just recently started collecting for the Atari Lynx, and I don't have a lot of games, so if there's some other really good games that you know of on the Atari Lynx that I should check out, let me know what those are down in the comments below. Now what would be really cool is if I could find another person with a working Atari Lynx and a copy of this game so I could play 2 players, because after all, this is a fantastic multiplayer game. Hey, thanks for checking out my review of Xybots on the Atari Lynx. If you like what you saw, don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons and check out the social media links there. And if you got some more time, why don't you watch one of these other videos I've got here. And as always, thanks for watching.